Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen with the Makers of Minnesota podcast. And there are a lot of challenges that are facing food makers as of late. Without sampling, it is hard to get people to try product, and it is getting harder and harder to stand out with grocers and buyers who are really inundated with just trying to keep the stores open. If you are looking for someone to help you get noticed, if you're looking for help with your social media or your social media strategy, or perhaps you have a new product launch and you need some PR, I can help. I work with a team of great freelance professionals, and we have launched lots of new products and help restaurants and helped brands get recognized and get noticed in the Twin Cities marketplace. If this is something that interests you, please give us a shout. I'd love to have the opportunity to talk with you about your brand and put a proposal together for you. A lot of times we work with clients and do like a 90-day plan where we help them launch a product. Other times clients need ongoing support throughout the year. If you're finding that this is just the last thing on your to-do list every single day, please give us a shout. We can make a huge difference in a short amount of time in not only increasing your following, but getting influencers to try your products and getting public relations eyes on your brands. Give me a shout at shansenmarketing@gmail.com. Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to the Makers of Minnesota, where we talk to cool people doing cool things. And I love the food space, and I tend to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs. And I'm here today with Casey Kai, and he is the founder of K Mama Sauce. We started out the call kind of offline, and you were like, hey, how's it going doing social media in the world of COVID? I'm like, well, like you would expect, it's been challenging. We've had a lot of Zoom calls. How are things going for K Mama Sauce? I think you and I first met at Stone Arch years ago.
Yep. I think it was I believe maybe it was 2016 or 17, but it feels like decades ago at this point under COVID. But things are going well. You know, I think this is a little plug, but we are also coming out with a documentary. It's a very short film that a nonprofit Korean American story did on us. It's profiling Korean American businesses around the country, and they wanted to see how we did business under COVID. So that's actually that's a plug for next week, the 16th. It comes out on their website, but it really does highlight. We shot a ton of footage of us working in the office with masks on if there's more than one person. So that's been a huge deal. It's no argument if you're going to be in the office, and majority of people aren't. I've asked everyone to just work at home, and we've had to make those adjustments. But if for whatever reason we can't do the thing remotely, we then do it in person with masks at max 2 people in the office. So doing that.
Can you just back up 1 second and give me? I think your sauce is kind of hard to describe because it's delicious, but it's I guess you would say it's a Korean sauce, but I feel like it's got so many applications and it's so much more than that. So can you just back up and tell me about the sauce?
Sure.
And how you created it and why you created it.
Gosh, the sauce it's my mom's recipe. It's not unusual. So I liken it to Minnesotans, moms and dads who make hot dishes, right? Everyone's got their own version, but their mom's is the best. So my mom's version of this sauce is a sauce that typically goes on a dish called bibimbap. So the main ingredient is gochujang. It's a red pepper paste, fermented. It's got this really pungent, spicy, but also like a savory kick and a little sweetness. And my mom would make this pretty regularly in our house when I was growing up, and I was lucky enough and privileged enough to have a mom, stay-at-home mom, who would cook Korean meals every day, and she would always have this. Yep, she would always have this tub in this like plastic Tupperware thing that she would slop out the gochujang, sesame oil, etc. And I don't want to give the secret recipe away, but she would put all this stuff together, and typically it would go with the bibimbap, right? The now very popular Korean mixed rice bowl, and then she would use it as a dipping sauce for vegetables, and she would put it in with her noodles or other dishes. And I think for me it seemed like a very regular condiment. I didn't think that it it didn't take much, but it did take a little bit of time to put it together. So um, I always tell my story as I'm a Jersey boy selling Korean hot sauce, and people are always confused. And it was, long story short, previous professions, I was a minister, I was a government worker, and I was a community organizer. So I wanted
Wow.
to,
I didn't know that about your background.
yeah. Yeah, so the 30% of our profits that we make sure to explicitly state on our bottles, it's primarily in partnership with my church, local food banks. I work with Junior Achievement for youth mentors, and so that was my previous lives. And I think K Mama Sauce was more just, it's a fundraising idea. As I was working at my church and I was working for the government, I said, why do the public, private, and nonprofit sector not really get along? I think certain lanes are open, but not all three are working in conjunction with one another. And I think that's where my enterprising mind and spirit came in. Is my pastor was like, "Hey, you should totally make the two things you love: Korean food and hot sauce." And that was kind of the launching pad in 2014, and we got started in 2015.
And so you mentioned that your kitchen where you're making the sauce is actually in a church.
Mhm.
And that, so are you working in the church that your profits are also benefiting? And do you still minister as well?
Gosh, so we've moved from the cottage. I mean, I love Minnesota, strong farmers market movement, and we were very steady, Freddie, in terms of every year. This year, we've obviously taken a step back with COVID. So I wish, all the farmers markets well, and all the vendors that are out there, they're all my friends. But that's where we got started. We no longer make the product in our kitchen. We worked in a commercial kitchen for a few years before we then moved on to a co-packer right in
Yep.
Northeast Minneapolis. So
How was the
I
co-packer transition? Was that hard?
very challenging, and I love our co-packer to death. I mean, it's really. I'm not married yet. I'm planning to get married next year, and Stephanie's a wonderful woman. But it's pretty. I've heard co-packing with a food vendor is like a marriage. So the ups and downs of making sure things fit and having the right compatibility earlier on. We've been working with them for 3 years now, 3 years plus, and I'd say probably the first 2.5 years, it was just working out some of the, just ironing out the details.
Yeah, and the taste
Hmm.
and the flavor and the types of preservatives you need to use and the
The
packaging.
caps, the fills, hot, cold. Is do you need to add this? We need this cheaper ingredient. So all the sourcing, and they do a fantastic job. And then the best part is they're in Northeast Minneapolis, which is
Right.
where we started to really get big in terms of the farmers market, Brasa, the restaurant that had us on their tables at first. But to your question about ministry, I feel like very much because our church is very community minded, and our business hires and a lot of the volunteers that we recruit are from our church, who a lot of them live in the walking distance from our church here in Columbia Heights. It's a community based and community supported business, and this is kind of a humble brag, but Ben and Jerry's is a huge inspiration, and their social mission director is one of my advisors, because we're wanting to grow into a social business as well. And just having that in mind, how do we impact community more than, of course, you survive and thrive as a CPG, and that's the name of the game. You have to make sales, you have to be out there, but yeah, having more of a lasting impact, especially in the community. So we've yet to really start to find the deeper partnerships with regards to our profits, but we do a lot of permaculture on our grounds here at the church. We work with obviously local labor and hiring, the types of ways, the initiatives, I guess, if you want to call them, that we strive to implement.
I love to hear that because I buy your sauce and I was delighted when I saw it, I guess at the beginning of COVID, kind of right at that early time frame. I found myself at Target and there you
Hmm.
were on the shelves at Target. And I was like, oh, this is a big deal for him. That's so exciting. So you guys have
Yes.
really expand. Are you also selling through Amazon and Whole Foods too?
Yes. So, great question. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. We've been working on trying to get into Whole Foods for the longest time, and their ingredients standards are really stringent, as
Mhm.
they should be, right? They want the best quality, best sourced product in terms of sustainability, and all the way through. So for us, probably almost 4 years, we've been talking with Whole Foods and Amazon. We were previously on, and we had a bigger bottle, but the ones that you see now at the Targets, the 6 ounce glass bottles, are the ones that we sell on Amazon, and that's the one that Whole Foods will start to carry starting next month, actually. So we'll social media blast it, and you heard it here first, that Whole Foods will be carrying the K Mama sauce gluten free. So that's the cleanest label, the shortest label sauce that we have under our brand. We do have a gluten free spicy. That's a throwback. We had that, and then it wasn't exciting for the customers. So, but now at Whole Foods, they still get to have that back. So
Well, and
we're reviving
maybe, yeah, and maybe nationally, spicy is a little more exciting than Minnesota spice sometimes. Let's just be
it. Yep,
honest. We're
the
not
ketchup.
known
Yep,
for, yeah,
pepper.
our spicy. How do you use the sauce? Because, like, I use it on like noodles, I use it
Hmm.
to grill when I grill chicken. I'll, use it like a barbecue sauce. I obviously use it like a dipping sauce. I'm curious how you use it at your house.
Yeah, and I will honestly say, like, we came up with really amazing recipes. We worked with recipe makers, but a lot of the recipes on our website, if you just go to our tab on the
Okay.
recipes, the bibimbap's on there, right? The mixed rice bowl, but there's a Korean style ribs, the short ribs.
Yum.
So that's one of my favorites. That we did that morning show with WCCO. That was fun with Jason. And I'd say the easiest things is just I like hot sauce on most things. Just add a little more kick or punch to chicken, rice, eggs. But for it's the most exciting part. I'm not vegan myself, but we've really found the traction at the Veg Fest, at the Nourished Gluten Free festivals, and now with Whole Foods. I think that's excuse me with the background noise,
That's okay.
but the that's the most exciting part. I've never meant to create a clean label gluten-free non-GMO sauce, but it was truly the feedback of the people at all the farmers markets that we used to go to that were like, hey, it'd be nice if we could have this flavor to also then have it cleaner. So I love seeing it on stir fry. I mean, there's not enough stir fry to go around. Broccoli, sugar snap peas, asparagus shoots. There's just so many fun things you can do.
When you think about COVID and how it's impacted your business, I feel like you guys were really on a roll. And
Mm.
has that slowed with the inability to sample?
Yes and no. I think food business, you just cannot convert. You're not just going to convert new customers, but you can't really get the feel of the company without a lot of the times it's either me or a few other people on our staff that they remember, right? The sauce is good, right? There's a lot of good
It's
sauces
great.
out there.
Yep.
Thank you. But it's like, oh, a lady calls one day and leaves a message and says, that young lady who was sampling, she did such a great job, and the sauce is great. How do I order more? Or this young man was there, he was so nice, and I don't see it in the same store anymore. For us, the sampling is part and parcel of food business. But I think the landscape is changing, and the adjustments for us were not as, um, I guess, heart wrenching. They're not like gonna make or break us in the sense that we were already on Amazon, we were already doing the website sales and collected the emails over the years. And granted, it's not hundreds or tens of thousands, but it's enough for us to then be regularly in the target. So thank you for noticing us there. And that's, I think, where um, like kind of the perfect storm came, which is people knew us enough at Targets, or if they seen our brand around, where they're like, oh my gosh, it's so cheap or it's so good. they tell their friends. And I think just the regular availability is marketing, right? It's a billboard. It's the product billboard.
It's funny that you say that because I'll say two things about you. One is that you seemed early on in working with you through different I do the Stone Arch Festival programming for the
Mm-hmm.
culinary arts market. And you did
Yes.
two things that I thought were really smart. Number one, you really clearly understood how to sell your product. Like you
Mm.
were amazing at standing there and selling your product. You had it
Thank
down.
you.
You were personable. You were gregarious. You did a lot of sampling. So many times when
Mm-hmm.
someone comes to a festival and they don't sample because, people just want free food, I'm like, you're missing the idea here because
Mm-hmm.
you're there to hopefully break even is a great
Yes.
goal, but you're really there
Yes.
to market so that when I walk by Target and I see your product on that Target shelf, I know I've seen you at Stone Arch. I know I've met you. I know I've seen you out and about. People
Mm-hmm.
forget what a great marketing opportunity these festivals and events are. And maybe with COVID and not a lot of them happening, people will have a
Mm.
energized enthusiasm for them when we can get back out there. Um,
Yes.
but you just did such a great job of selling the product, but I also knew that you saw it as a marketing opportunity.
It, honestly, we were mainly like I've had arguments and fights about this with my partners, with my staff. Is why are we doing this event? Or and a lot of times when I did them because it's my own time and I cover my own costs, so it's I I make money for this. But our staff typically it was close to even, but many times we lost a little bit. But how do you know, in the world of data collection, right? The impact that an event has, and I think you're absolutely right, Stephanie. The events are like I grew up very social, and I grew up and I do have some sales in my background too. Is people remember, they have a feeling to an event. They have a feeling to the state fair. I just ordered crabs. My sister sent me Atlantic crab, and you have this flood of memories that are associated with that. And I think the pleasant experience that you get, not just with the food, obviously that's really important, but the whole experience. I think that's what you're speaking to, Stephanie. Is yeah, I knew that there was greater impact than just the bottom line, and there's a way that it's a double-edged sword too, right? If you don't have the right personnel, you don't have the right weather. Sometimes it is, there's fluctuations in that too. But I think there's a lot of impact that you get out of just being out there, right? And of course, if you sell the sauce, that's the most helpful. But I still remember people who are like, "Hey, met you at the Stone Arch Bridge from 2016,
Mm-hmm.
or I met you at Grand Old Days, or I saw you at this one local co-op sampling," and it has a lasting impression that you can't just x amount of sales conversions, ROIs, in a world where it's purely data driven.
I think people too want to support local people. They want to support people they know, like your face is something that we're like, oh, I remember that guy. I've seen him around. Are you feeling like now is a good opportunity to be a person of color in terms of the food space? Is this in all of this racial injustice that we're experiencing?
Mm,
Is there a bright spot for you as an entrepreneur?
I appreciate that question. I think it's always been on my mind. So I've before the murder of George Floyd and all the protests. Um, yeah, I mean, I'm a lighter skin colored person. So I do have some privileges, but there are still disadvantages, obviously, for POC to start off any business, let alone the food space. And the food space is, as you know, it's probably one of the most cutthroat CPGs out there. I don't know the tech space, but I know food, having gone to all the different fancy food shows, Expo West, like it's a circus, as you probably guess and know. It's challenging. I think how do I present the brand authentically? So I am Korean American. I'm second gen. So I didn't immigrate here, but my parents did.
Mhm.
So that's a specific experience. And at the same time, there's a history of making excuses for, pulling the race card. And Granted, my sauce is called K Mama sauce. So it's referencing about an authentic flavor that I grew up with as an American, Korean American still. And I think that was, I think it's easier now to be, to say that, you know what, there are nonprofits out there who are willing to help. And I will say, in the last 3-4 months, I'm just seeing the CEO of Lowe's, the FedEx giving out grants to small businesses, particularly POC. It's great. I wish they had done that pre 2020.
Right.
There's so many cultural linguistic challenges to start a business, but I'm so inspired because the African community here, the Hmong community. I see them leading the way, and there's also obviously lots of white majority nonprofits or founded nonprofits. So we actually are just starting accelerator. It's a social business accelerator called Impact Skew. So you might have seen that kind of going around LinkedIn, but them and a few others, I think it's Lunar or Solar Arts, but there's
Lunar
particularly.
Startup.
Yeah, Lunar Startups. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Stephanie. They're trying to really enter into spaces that are underrepresented, whether it's African Americans, Asian Americans, Latino, and so I very much appreciate the most recent efforts, but I also appreciate those who have been just so steady, advocating for people who have a harder time entering the food CPG space for sure.
Yeah, and getting, money for your businesses and getting investors and
We're
investment.
talking serious stuff now, Stephanie.
Mm-hmm.
Loans, I'm a man, so I identify as male, so there's a lot of privileges. I was on a panel with all women who said, I've reached out to banks and I've been denied 30 times, 50 times. And I thought it was hard with like 4.
Yeah.
So just, and like, and that's just the reality of some of that space.
Yeah, and you only know what you don't know. Like, your 4
Mm-hmm.
times was heartbreaking for you, and
Mm-hmm.
yet I've had the 2 gals from Urban Growler on the program, and they have a brewery
Yes.
and a
Yes.
restaurant, and they both gay women, but I think they got their loan from their bank on like the 30th try, just something, and they had a
Mm-hmm.
really solid business plan. Like, you go to your mentors and you get your plan together, and then the ironic thing about the whole part of it to me, having had a bank loan, is you get all done. They tell you your business plan's awesome. Your concept is proven. We even had profit that we could show. And yet
Wow.
they were like, okay, so we're going to use your house as collateral. You can sign
gosh.
right here. And I was like, wait a second. I've been going after this for 2 years to have you tell me that I can put my house up as collateral. I could have done that 2 years ago. It's called a mortgage loan. I could have loaned myself the money. Why am I here? It was just
Seriously.
very frustrating experience.
Oh, so sorry to hear that. Gosh.
Yeah.
And I'm not even at the investor conversation. We're starting to talk about that in the Impact Skew that will start here in August. And a lot of the founders are women or POC, and I think you hit it right on the nose. What you don't know, you don't know. And I think that it's not so much affirmative action. I think there's a way you level the playing field. You make it an even race, and I think that's right. I think that's the part that's really challenging. Is, man, my personal connections are not as wide as someone who grew up in Minnesota. It's just a fact.
And that's just part of it too. It's all who
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I do
Exactly.
feel, and I'm a white woman speaking who's grown up here my whole life, but I do feel like there is a shift, and I feel very encouraged about that. And one of the things that I hope is I'm seeing a lot of white allyship and learning how to be a better ally and really what that means, and not just kind of saying the right stuff and then going on with your day. Cause I'm guilty of that. Like, I really thought I get the struggle. I was an entrepreneur. I was a business person. I'm a woman. I have been trying to struggle. I thought, for my own personal self, the privilege that I had, I felt I wasn't really right with it because I felt like someone was going to take away all my hard work. Like, wait a second, I know I'm white and I know I have privilege, but I worked really hard. And
Right.
what I learned through more personal exploration with myself and through reading and learning is that no one's trying to take anything away from me. They're just trying to get a seat at the table themselves.
That's right.
And that doesn't have to be at my expense. I can still be successful and have worked really hard, but why can't we make room for this person to have that same opportunity? So
Sure.
it just took a little bit of exploration. And I am encouraged that more people that are leaders of corporations, more people that are leaders in our business space are starting to open more of those doors and make it easier, even if just a little bit, for people to walk through them and have the same chance that I had.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly amen that. That's that. I mean, we need more. I fully agree with you. There are more allies than before. There aren't activists, like they're not like active white supremacists driving around town saying, "Hey, don't start this food business." That's not obviously how it is in 2020. In certain cities, it might be. I mean, you look at some of these protests in certain cities, but Minnesota, I feel like there's more need, and I think we've definitely done a better job. I've only lived in Minnesota for 10 years, and even in that time, there's been a huge upsurge in food startups, and a majority of them are women and or POC. So I know who they are, and not to say like white males can't start food businesses. There's plenty, and they do well,
Sure.
and some of them don't do well. That's just the luck of the draw too. But knowing that, you know what, there's other recent immigrants, there's second or third career folks like myself who are like, you know what, I want to do this, and I want to do it in a way where I'm happy, I'm passionate about, and at the same time naming some of the things that are beneficial to folks who grew up here, who are lighter skinned, white in Minnesota, and but yeah, no, I would agree with that for sure.
What is it that you want people to know most about K Mama Sauce?
Oh man, in a strange but very roundabout way, I've been wanting to present our values, and this is going back to the Ben and Jerry's and the Newman's Own and other social businesses that are out there, and they've been doing this work since the 70s. So it's they've trailblazed decades ago. So just to name and also name drop some of these companies is something that I mean, just for example, we have at our community and our church here, we've always been anti-racist, anti-sexist. Like those are just basic, basic tenets of our church. So with George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd, afterwards we said, you know what, all the sales on our website, we'll give 50% of the profits to Black Lives Matter. And there were some issues on Facebook to advertise and our website, et cetera. But at the end of the day, what was really important was to tell our loyal customers, and not just the customers that want a good deal and a good sauce. It's people who are committed to businesses and companies that are wanting to do change and enact change for good. And good is a general sense, but the environment, right? The environment as a stakeholder. A lot of corporations don't factor that in. The employees, the customers themselves are stakeholders. And so if you look at it, in that sense, sure, like I would love to be around for another 5, 10, 50 years. And, the food space is, the more I've been in it, I feel like the more it is really, it really is just the luck of the draw. And so it's, be that as it is, I also, in that short period of time or long period of time, I want to say, hey, I made an effort to improve certainly the people that work for KMAMASAS, but also improve the quality of life for the people in local Northeast Minneapolis, in the Twin Cities, Minnesota, Midwest, etc.
Did you say you're marrying a Stephanie?
I am.
That's excellent. We're very excellent people.
All the Stephanies I know, it's yes, they are quite exceptional people. So
it's so funny. Well, I'm glad to get to talk to you and just catch up on Key Mama and what's happening. Congratulations on Whole Foods. And we'll keep looking for you. The sauce is excellent. I remember the first time I met you and I thought, man, that guy had some sales background, but that is good sauce.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you so much for this time. And you've been a huge, I mean, to speak of advocates, yeah, I appreciate that first conversation and every one since, and you've really helped us grow. So you are
Thanks.
also
I
a
appreciate
stakeholder
you
in our
guys too.
growth.
All right. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.